We think we know what Brandon Ayuk wants from the 49ers. So why haven't they given it to him yet? Plus, a very familiar voice says this season is Super Bowl or bust for the 49ers. Do we agree with him? We'll get to all that and more on Bully Ball. What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Bully Ball podcast here on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. I am Rob Stats Guerreras. She is Steph Sanchez. Steph, thank you for letting me pinch it on the show because Jay couldn't be here today.
Thanks, Rob, for joining. Don't worry, I'm not going to poke fun at you this show. I'm just going to enjoy my time with you.
Yeah, you'll do it next show when Jason is back. I know how you operate. I know your tricks, Sanchez. Don't worry about that. A lot to talk about on today's show. Didn't get to do a show yesterday, so I wanted to talk about the Brandon Ayuk stuff because Jeremy Fowler had a report about his contract demands that I thought was pretty interesting. You sent me an article involving Adam Rank, who, of course, is very infamous among 49ers fans, and he's got more things to say about the Niners, so we're going to get to that as well. Let's start with the Jeremy Fowler stuff. If you missed it, I'll throw it up on the screen. He said, wait a minute, that's the wrong Jeremy Fowler quote board. Damn it. I am off to a bad start. I apologize. See, that's what happens. I didn't get my stuff ready ahead of time. I had the wrong one up there. There's too many Jeremy Fowler, Brandon Ayuk reports. First of all,
there's been a lot.
Throw that out there. Here is the proper quote board, if it'll actually load. There we go. Fowler said, quote, I was told the benchmark here is Amon-Ra St. Brown because he got $28 million a year on a 4-year deal from Detroit. The goal, it appears, for Ayuk is to try to beat that. He doesn't need to have the highest paid in the league, but he's done enough and accomplished enough in that offense to where he's probably going to have to be at that number or higher. Steph, just first blush reaction for you. Does that seem reasonable for Brandon Ayuk?
It seems reasonable because I think this is what we were expecting when that Amon-Ra St. Brown contract came out, when we saw the numbers. I think at first we were, uncomfortable with the 30 million. Now seeing the final details of that contract, it's more closer to 28 million. That's an easier pill for me to swallow. And so I think it should be for the 49ers as well. And they should not be surprised, for one, because they wait this long to get their extensions done, that other guys are going to get ahead of them in the market, set the market, and then have players like Brandon Ayuk then wanting more than that. So it shouldn't be a surprise. And I think I'd be comfortable paying that amount. I think the 49ers would be too.
Yeah, I like the way you broke down the Amon-Ra deal because the way it's reported and the breakdown are two different things. This isn't really a shock, like you said. The ballparks are known because it's all determined by the contracts that have gotten done, and a couple have gotten done recently, like you said. Just going by what Pro Football Talk has written about the Amon-Ra St. Brown deal, it's $35.2 million fully guaranteed at the moment of signing. The practical guarantee is a little over, it's about $63 million because the only way they could avoid paying him his salary in 2026 is to cut him after this year, which they're not going to do. So it's basically $62.7 million practical guarantee. The new money average is $30 million a year. But the last year, I guess, puffs that number up. So through 3 years, it's about $28 million per year. That seems relatively reasonable. The only thing I could think of is that do you think that there's some weird issue because of what Debo makes and they don't want Ayuk to make more than Debo? Do you think that contract has anything to do with it?
I mean, I hope it doesn't. That would be pretty silly, right? I mean, that deal was done a couple of years ago. And as we've seen, like the market sets the price. It isn't so much of, well, this player isn't better than this player. I mean, you could even make the argument Amon-Ra St. Brown is a better wide receiver. And yet we're having the conversation that Brandon Ayuk may get paid more than him as far as the final numbers on his extension. Why? Because next man up is usually the guy that gets paid a little bit more. So again, we're like a couple years removed from the Debo deal.
Mm-hmm.
Ayuk is going to get paid more than Debo. That's just the way it's going to work, just based on the timing of it all. So I'm hoping that that wouldn't be the issue.
I hope so too. I think that Ayuk is a better fit in the offense than Debo Samuel, frankly. If Debo doesn't like it, tough. Ball out again next year, Debo, and then you can get a higher deal. But
yesterday's price is not today's price.
Whatever you paid for Debo was great, but that deal is old now.
I wish Jay was here.
Now that I'm here and I'm like part of the show, I get to play with all my little toys that I have here, and I like the good soundboard. You never know
That
what
was epic.
brought.
Classic. Buckle up, buddy.
You got
buckle up. Get ready to pay 28 million plus, bucko.
Oh, I liked one of the first comments from Oscar Alfaro, YouTube channel member. Why not? It's not my money. Exactly. Go for it.
Gosh, fans get so hung up on like millions that don't even belong to them. And they get so pissed off about paying a player and saying this player isn't worth this, he's not worth that. Who cares? It's not your money. And the 49ers have shown that they're pretty good at navigating the cap and structuring these deals, staggering it in such a way where it does not hurt them in the present time. And so I think, come on, have some trust. And I wish it was my money, but it isn't. So so I don't care.
Jeremy Seeking says, unless the 49ers turn into a pass-oriented offense, I don't think he deserves $28 million a year. If he gets 140 targets, maybe, but he won't get that. I understand the thinking that like you want to get your money's worth out of the contract, but also like a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown's catches are in the slot over the middle. They're shorter catches. Like Ayuk is maximizing every single catch with the damn ball. I mean, if it wasn't for that stupid Week 18 game against the Rams when Sam Darnold was in there, Ayuk would have led the league in yards per catch. Like he's getting chunk plays down the field. So I think you are getting your money's worth, even if you're not getting necessarily the volume of catches that you get with Amon-Ra St. Brown or some of these other receivers.
Right. Do you value catches or yardage more? I mean, Brandon Ayuk had close to 1,500 yards last season, and I would say that is deserving of 28 million. Now, also like part of the argument of Brandon Ayuk doesn't deserve this is he's not the number one option on his team, which is part of the reason his reception numbers are so low. But if we look at what this team might look like in a couple of years, there is a path towards Brandon Ayuk being the number one option. So if you pay him that kind of money now, I mean, in a couple of years, his deal might look like a steal.
A couple of years, a couple of weeks, if you pay him now and then Justin Jefferson signs and then Jamar Chase signs, he's going to be third. Like that deal could look a lot better very, very quickly.
Yeah. So I think for the 49ers, they're thinking long term with this, as they should. And I think Brandon Ayuk has a path towards having more volume in the next few years. Debo Samuel may not be in the picture. Not sure what George Kittle's future looks like. I know they've restructured his contract a number of times, so they might not have a choice but to keep him around. But as far as health, as far as where Kittle falls in the pecking order, it's very much in the realm of possibility that we see Brandon Ayuk, leap those guys as far as volume goes.
I'm just checking on Twitter, or maybe I officially have to call it X now because the website has changed. Brandon Ayuk's latest Instagram story. It's a picture of him saying, and he wrote, "I'm way too hungry to be splitting my food up like that."
Now, is this a typo? Like, did he mean to say to be spitting my food up like that? Because I thought originally that's what he said, but it makes sense kind of both ways.
Yeah, look, I'm the old white dude, so I'm like the least qualified person to be like translating what social media posts from current athletes are. But I don't know. I thought that we were close to a deal when he put out that video the other day that was like, the sun is shining, the sky is blue, I'm so blessed, blah, blah, blah. I was like, maybe he just got word that, like they're on the 1 yard line and he's about to get the bag. And now I have no idea what this means. I'm not qualified transit. Can someone in the chat help me, please? Like, what? I don't get it.
Nobody knows what it means, but it's provocative. And we will continue to speculate on what it means regardless.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there has been some kind of like double meaning, subliminal messages to like a lot of the things that he's posted this off season, but I don't know. At the end of the day, it's really doesn't mean much to me.
Yeah, I just get signed. That's all I care about. 49ers have OTAs tomorrow. I don't expect to see Brandon Ayuk there. Do you expect to see Christian McCaffrey there, Steph? He didn't show up last week. ProFootballTalk.com reported it was not over his contract. Do you expect to see CMC this week?
Okay, it for one, it's good to know that it's not because of his contract. Because boy, if there's anyone who has reason to ask for a raise, even despite being the highest paid running back, it would be Christian McCaffrey. But maybe, I mean, I don't know why he wasn't there the first week. Again, it's voluntary, so it's not that much of a worry. I know that he's in the midst of preparing for his wedding that's going to be happening sometime in June. So maybe he was locked in with some personal things having to do with that. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that he was there last season during OTAs and he was such an exemplary player at that time, I would love to see him back, and I hope he is back for OTAs. I mean, Nick Bosa had originally planned to arrive for the second week of OTAs, which is, this week, had it not been for Kyle Shanahan, kind of encouraging him to, maybe come at the start of it. So maybe the same falls true for Christian McCaffrey, that he was kind of targeting that second week in this second week of OTAs.
So McCaffrey has a cap number of 14.14 this year, 14.34 next year. So, I mean, he could certainly argue he's underpaid, especially coming off an offensive player of the year. Just an incredible season for him. I could also understand the 49ers wanting to be like, we don't really want to give you any more money because you're a running back and you're getting older. Maybe they can give it to him in a signing bonus so he can, give him the same amount of money, just give him more of it to him right now, as opposed to, having to go game by game. I don't know. I think what I think is going to happen ultimately when you're talking about like whether or not Brandon Ayuk can or will become like that number one wide receiver in terms of volume. If you want to save McCaffrey a little bit, what you do is you become more of a passing offense. So you lighten the load and the touches on McCaffrey because you're throwing the ball more. And then maybe you can keep him around when he's a little bit older. If you did want to keep him around, I could see a world where realistically the Niners shift from being less about 23, more about 13 and throwing the ball.
Well, Rob, you can also use any of your other running backs besides Christian McCaffrey. Let's start there. Isaac Rendo, the one you just drafted in the 4th round, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a start. But yeah, I mean, the way I've seen it with Kyle Shanahan and his usage of CMC, I think it's twofold. I think for one, CMC hates being off of the field. Like you see him on the sideline and it could just literally just be one snap and the dude just looks angry on the sideline that he's not in the play. And then two, I think Kyle Shanahan just can't help himself but want to use, a toy as fast and shiny and good as Christian McCaffrey is. So yes, maybe there will be a bit of a reduction in Christian McCaffrey's volume this season. He definitely deserves it. And also, if you want to preserve him for the long haul, another long season as we're expecting, that'd be one smart way to do it. But as far as that actually happening, I'm not sure.
So I was in my DMs yesterday and somebody named Valerie Gonzalez hit me up and was like breaking down the Christian McCaffrey stuff for me. I was super helpful. She was sending me some Instagram videos from McCaffrey's fiance, Olivia Copo. And in the video, as she pointed out to me, like you could see at one point, there's a little note on a mirror, and it's like 35 days away from the wedding, which would put the wedding at the end of June. So like it seems like they scheduled around football. So the fact that Christian McCaffrey wasn't there, to me, I don't think it was a wedding thing. That's why I'm wondering, like, is it a contract thing? Because it seems like with the wedding, they've sort of taken that football schedule into account.
But there's still some preparations that you need to make. But at the same time,
No,
like
it's not. I've gotten married. It's not that hard.
at the same time, though, like they have wedding planners, one if not two, right? I mean, so they should be able to handle that and be able to work. Again, like there's personal reasons why, besides a wedding, why someone may not attend OTAs. So I'm deciding to not get too hung up on it, especially after it's been reported that the reason he wasn't there didn't have to do with his contract at all.
And for the record, these are voluntary. I don't care if he stays away. The only reason why I'm thinking like this is because it's out of character for him. That's the only like if he had never shown up before or whatever, I'd be like, fine. But we know him to be, as you just talked about, like a rah-rah guy, like wants every touch, wants to be on the field. That's the only reason why I'm sort of curious about the whole situation. And look, he may show up tomorrow and it may be a nothing. I have no idea. We'll see. Maybe he was always planning on showing up the second week like Nick Bosa was. But I thought it was interesting because it was out of character. And usually when guys stay away, especially guys that have shown up in the past, it's over money. We will find out. Daza 0187 YouTube channel member. Shout out to all our YouTube channel members. Please become one. It's less than $3 a month. You get custom emojis, membership badges, priority comment response. Daza says, what advantage is there for the 49ers waiting so long for extensions? It feels like it backfired with Brandon Ayuk. I mean, they always wait. This is what they do. It drives me nuts. They claim they want to get it done faster, and then they don't get it done faster. But this is how they operate, for better or worse.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it either. We've seen many years in a row now how that has impacted the final numbers for the eventual extensions that they do give. And for players, I mean, I'd be like, keep it coming. Like, yeah, take as long as you want. Wait till after the Justin Jefferson deal for all I care.
Right.
I'm Brandon Ayuk, right? So yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I don't think it benefits them. I think some of their plan, it seems like they want to wait till after the draft to really get into negotiations, into the weeds of it. But we've seen other teams like negotiate deals in season, before at the tail end of it, before the draft. So I don't know if that could really be much of an excuse.
Right. Detroit did the Amon-Ra St. Brown deal. Philly did both wide receivers, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. So clearly there are different ways to do it. Randy, I don't want to butcher your last name. Galela says CMC may feel he needs extra rest to get right after the longest season he just played. That is fair. Judd says McCaffrey's getting married. Maybe he wants to support his wife as much as possible during voluntary portion. This is a day some women dream of their whole life, and she supported him through years of ball. That's fine. What do you think he's doing with her? You think he's following her around saying, hey, Olivia, good job. Way to plan that wedding. Like, I've planned a wedding before. Is it a lot of work? Yes. Do you need to be following your wife or future wife around, offering words of support? No. I don't think it has to do with the wedding. Again, they scheduled the wedding to be in late June after the OTA stuff. And by the way, there's nothing stopping Christian McCaffrey from going to OTAs and then doing all the wedding support stuff after the workout is over. It doesn't take up the entire 24-hour day. So I'm not buying the wedding thing. And maybe he just doesn't want to show up, and that's fine too. Again, I only focus on it because it's different for him. That's all I care about.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully he's there, right? Because then we won't have any other further questions about where he's at.
Mr. J says, is Steph still mad at me about that defending Kyle Shanahan comment? What defending Kyle Shanahan?
Yeah, I don't recall.
Listen,
my memory sucks. So
Steph gets a lot of comments, okay, Mr. J. She can't be held responsible if she doesn't remember them all.
And I definitely do not.
Let's get to the article that you sent me from Adam Rank, which I'm going to try and pull up right now. Adam Rank, of course, didn't he famously predict the 49ers to win like 3 games and then they went to the Super Bowl or something like that?
Yeah.
I remember there was like a whole controversy. So it looks like he's doing a state of the franchise for every team. And he did the state of the franchise for the 49ers today. And it's talking about the Super Bowl. And essentially he says it's Super Bowl or bust for the 49ers this season. I don't know how it could be anything else, Steph. Do you agree with Adam Rank?
I 100% agree. Last season, I think we had similar topics. Like we've discussed this, and I think I was open to the idea of no, like it wouldn't have been a failure if they didn't make the Super Bowl last year. And the reason for that was because Brock Purdy was coming off, his elbow surgery, and we didn't know what that was going to look like, his recovery and all that. So I think I left room for some disappointment. We were still disappointed, but at least they made it to the Super Bowl. This year, it's like, okay, guys, you made it to the Super Bowl last year. Really, like there is no other like step than to win it. At that point, if the previous season you got there and lost, your next season needs to be the win, or it is 100% a failure, especially where this team is at right now in its window. This is their last good shot with this core, which might be one of the best cores of a non Super Bowl winning team that we have ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It needs to get done, or it's a failure 100%.
I absolutely agree. I thought last year was Super Bowl or bust, but with what you said about Brock coming off the injury, I could see how you could argue against that. But this year, there's just no excuse. That's it. Win the Super Bowl, period. I know, a lot of people like to talk about you can still have a successful season without a championship. And I think for a lot of teams, that's true, particularly teams early in their team building phase, like the Lions. Last season, 100% of success for the Lions, even though they lost the NFC Championship game, even blowing the big lead like they did. Still a success for the Lions, who haven't been good basically in my entire lifetime. That's not where the 49ers are. I think of the Celtics when you think of the 49ers, because they're obviously in the NBA Finals right now, and they're sort of in the same boat, right? They've gone to the Eastern Conference Finals a lot. They've been knocking on the door a lot. They've gone to the finals, but they haven't won that championship. And that's, I think, exactly where the 49ers are. So I don't think this is controversial from Adam Rank at all. He goes on to sort of list the offseason additions and subtractions for the 49ers. It's like a whole team profile. And I got to say, when you look at like the departures, it's not looking like anybody scary. I mean, who's the biggest departure from the 49ers? Eric Armstead.
Yeah.
But even he, because of the injuries, wasn't always on the field. So I feel like the impact of that is not going to be as big as if you told me Eric Armstead had played every game the past 10 years and now all of a sudden he's not here anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the fact that he wasn't healthy, of course, is part of the reason I think why the 49ers decided among, his contract, why it was time to move on. So that does soften the blow a little bit. And I also think while the additions of the guys they brought into the defensive line to kind of replace the Eric Armstead role, I think it's going to be more of a group effort. So even then, I think it's not like we're going to have a one-to-one comparison to one player that left to an addition. It's not going to be like the Forrest Buckner, and the one-to-one comparison is always to Javon Kinlaw. Like, we're not going to have that. And maybe the 49ers like did that intentionally. Now that I think about it, because that kind of haunted them for quite some time. Now you got a couple of guys kind of taking on that role. And I mean, if they're kind of a sum of what Eric Armstead was. So if one of them, maybe doesn't exactly pan out, there's still, one of those other guys that could overperform. So we'll see. I guess like I'm cautiously optimistic about what that's going to look like. But I agree. I think that is the biggest, departure, and it's not that big of a scary one when you consider how much time he missed.
Michelle Majuk and I did bold predictions for the 49ers on Friday. And one of my bold predictions was that Leonard Floyd is going to have more sacks than anybody that's been opposite Nick Bosa in his time here. And it's not super bold, I guess you could argue, but Eric Armstead has that title right now with 10. That was Bosa's rookie year. Armstead had 10 sacks. Since then, the highest I think is Javon Hargrave with 7. Like, that is how they have been searching for someone opposite Nick Bosa. I think they finally found it this year. So even though, maybe the run defense may not be quite as potent as it has in years past, I know some people are worried about that. I think the pass rush is going to be as good as it has been in the Nick Bosa era, which goes all the way back to 2019.
Yeah, and that isn't crazy because I recall when the 49ers signed him, we were pointing out the fact that, hey, this guy hasn't had less than like 9 sacks since 2020. So that's a pretty decent sample size of consistency. And I think with this supporting cast around him, it's not at all crazy to think that he could do that. Now, I will caution though, we were kind of thinking the same about, and this is a different position, but we were thinking the same of Javon Hargrave when he joined the 49ers. He was like, well, he had this many sacks with the Eagles. He's going to have along the same or maybe even better of a supporting cast in San Francisco. He should be able to do the same. That didn't happen. So I don't know. It's not always apples to oranges.
He still had 7 last year, which was solid, but it wasn't the 11 he had with Philadelphia. And honestly, I can't even remember all 7 of the sacks from Javon Hargrave. If you asked me if he had 7, I probably would have said no last year, but maybe that's just my own. Do you remember? Can you remember one specific sack that Javon Hargrave have? Off the top of my head, I can't remember.
Well, I have bad memory, but I could probably remember he had a couple. I'm not gonna remember who it was on.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I just have bad memory, so don't.
He may be better. He could be better next year too, by the way. Especially if we buy what the 49ers.
He has to be.
You think he has to be?
He has to be, Rob. I think he underperformed based on expectations with him in San Francisco. So to me, he has to be, especially with no Javon Kinlaw there, with no Eric Armstead. It's all you, big guy.
Let's see it, Gravedigger. He's cap number this year, 2024, $9.2 million. And then 2025 is $28 million. Man. Yes.
He has to.
Yeah, good God. He has to. I mean, maybe I'm sure they would restructure that. He doesn't have any guaranteed money after this year, so I'm sure that there would be things happening with that contract. But yeah, you're right. He absolutely has to be. And maybe he will be if you're buying what the 49ers are selling with that, Nick Sorensen or Brandon Staley or whoever is really going to fix, that marriage of front and coverage. And will it be better? Yes. But again, they were 3rd in points allowed last year for the whole year, 3rd in points allowed. So it's not like it may not have functioned the way the 49ers wanted it to, but they were still a really good defense last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the entirety of it, yes. I think if you look at the run defense, there were certain things there were some leaks. There were some leaks in that. So while the machine was working, I mean, a leak is not good, and their run defense to me was the biggest issue. Second one being the lack of pressure at times. It improved towards the end of the season, but I'm talking about the pressures, not the run defense. The run defense got worse towards the end of the season, but it's a pretty low bar, right, to improve that.
The run defense, I suppose. I mean, yeah, you really have to dig beyond the raw numbers, right? Because if you just look at the raw numbers, the 49ers gave up the 3rd fewest rushing yards in the league last year, which you ask any 49er fan, they would not say that, right? They would be like, oh, no,
exactly.
But part of that, I think, was because teams were always trailing by so much against the 49ers that they just flat out could not run the ball. rather than it
Yeah.
being the Niners' run defense is so good. They kicked the hell out of teams last year. They were pummeling teams by multiple scores in these games. And you can't count on that level of dominance this year. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see the 49ers in a lot more close games this year, especially when you look at their schedule.
Yeah, maybe not early. I mean, yeah, even early in the season, there's opportunity to be in some close games. I I agree with that. Which
Well,
which was always yeah, that was always my thing with the argument of like why did they fire Steve Wilkes? Look at all these great defensive stats. This is malpractice to fire him after what he did. No, I mean if you saw what this defense looked like, all 49er fans know it did not look right in comparison to previous seasons, comparison to expectations. And when you look at the personnel they had, it underperformed. And so yes, it was still a good defense, but it underperformed.
this year, I said it when the schedule came out. You got to stack some wins early because the back half of that schedule
Oh
is
yeah.
tough, but there's plenty of opportunity to get happy at the early part of the season. But I mean, I think we would all agree. I think that Chiefs game is going to be a close game. I think they'll beat the Cowboys. I don't know if they're going to blow the doors off them like they did last year, but I think that'll be a relatively close game. I think the Packers game will be close. The Bills game will be close. The line, like, even the wins that the 49ers have, I think they're going to be a lot closer than just last year when they trampled people last year. It was absurd.
Which is why last year was kind of like you had a lot of momentum. It was like their best shot at getting it. This is their next best shot, but as we've kind of alluded to, like we're not expecting the same level of dominance.
I'm not, no. But that's doesn't mean they can't get it done. The Chiefs were a kind of a
Yeah,
mid
that's true.
team.
Maybe they should conserve their energy for like when it matters. Like just kind of like skate by, go under the radar a little bit.
I mean, I would not put make a huge push to be the number one seed. Like, yeah, would it be nice? Yes. But like much more of a concern to me is just getting the damn thing done at this point. You had all
I
that
mean,
stuff
yes.
lined up for you last year and you still didn't do it. So, I mean, where
Well,
would you be scared to play on the road in the playoffs?
are you kidding? I'm thinking weather-wise, Detroit and Green Bay.
Well, Detroit's inside.
Are they?
Yes.
Oh,
The
that's
Lions,
good. Okay.
in fact, the Lions only play.
But that stadium was crazy.
It's loud, yes, but weather would not be a factor. The Lions only play 3 games outside all year, and one of them is in San Francisco.
Oh, well, look at them.
But Green Bay, if it's not raining, I don't know. I've never seen Brock in the snow, so I don't know how he would do. If it's raining, I have major concerns, yes. But if it's just cold, I don't know. But I don't know. We've seen Kyle Shanahan 49ers teams go out in the cold and still win.
Yeah. Yeah, we have. I mean, we've seen Jimmy Garoppolo do it. I mean, that level of cold impacts everyone.
Mhm.
Like if there's an advantage because you're used to it, like it at that point, like if it's like 10 degrees, it's minute. Like the the advantage you have just because you have to deal with it too.
Right.
And as we saw in that game, a couple years ago in the playoffs against Green Bay in the snow, it impacted everyone, including the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. So yeah, I think it's yet to be seen. I know Brock played in some snow at Iowa. I thought I didn't see it, so I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying he didn't. I don't know for sure. JM617. I don't care where we play and when. Bills in the winter sounds fun. That has the potential. I mean, every once in a while in Buffalo, you get that lake effect snow, and they need like an army of people to shovel out the stadium. Like,
Yeah,
I hope that doesn't happen to the 49ers. Although maybe I do, because then we would get to see Brock in the snow. And at least if they lost, it'd be against an AFC team.
and yeah, it's like, of course you don't care where we play. You're not like we're not the ones playing. We're
My
not the
living
ones
room is
having to lay.
My house is 70 degrees all year round. I don't care where they play. Just like it's not my money, right?
Exactly.
Wedge Antilli says, Rob, are the 49ers Super Bowl or bust? We talked about that a little earlier in the show, 100%. How about this bold prediction from Michelle, Steph? I was stunned when she said this, as Heineman points out on Twitch. Shout out to the Twitch fam. She predicted an undefeated season for the 49ers this year. That was her bold prediction.
And she was serious?
Well,
hey, I mean, bold predictions have to be bold, right? I mean,
Right.
that is pretty bold.
So-
It's out there.
yes, we went through the schedule and she predicted 14-3. And then but for her bold prediction was that they were going to actually win those 3 games and win all of them. I can't go there. I mean, that would be awesome, but no one's ever done it before.
If you go 17-0 and you don't win the Super
Right.
Bowl, like I don't even know. I do unspeakable things.
As Heineman says, she was drinking mimosas at the time. I mean,
The
she
mimosas
is.
we're talking.
So, and it was like, as we get to the end of the show and the cup gets empty, the predictions get bolder from Michelle too. So it may have had an effect. I'm not willing to rule it out completely.
Mimosa predictions. I like it.
Kenny says, I don't know if blocking a punt for a touchdown is a sustainable football winning strategy. True, you wouldn't have needed to block a punt for a touchdown if Jimmy Garoppolo didn't throw one of the stupidest interceptions I've ever seen right before halftime of that game, if you recall, Kenny, and God knows I do.
And he could have done that if it wasn't snowing and, sub-0 degrees,
It's true. One more thing I wanted to get to before the end of the show. I sent it to you and Jay on the text chain. Apparently, the league is considering changing OTAs, and essentially they want to have, like, instead of having OTAs and then a break and then training camp, they essentially want to delay the start of everything and just have OTAs sort of bleed into one long training camp. And like you were talking about, it's not my life, so it doesn't really affect me. But I was just thinking, in terms of content creation, is this good or bad for us, Steph?
Oh, God. It's kind of awful. It's kind of awful. But at the same time, like, we have that lull in between mandatory minicamp and training camp that is just so annoying, and it's excruciating. So if you just take those days and move it to the front and have OTAs or whatever they're going to call it, be a little bit later, that's fine. We would just probably spend a little more time talking about post-draft stuff, projecting things as we do in the off season. So I don't know. I think for that it sucks, but for teams, I think for the players, I think they would like that. I think
Yes.
It's a way better ramp up, and as far as like conditioning your body and keeping it conditioned as to avoid injury, I think it's way better to have just one block of football that goes straight into your season rather than that long break. I mean, the break doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. The question is, how would that impact rookies? Because, like, I imagine rookies are still going to have a rookie mini camp, like, following the draft right after that. Mm-hmm. But then what do they do after that? Are they going to have that structure of knowing what to do in that time after they've been drafted?
Yeah, that's a fair question to ask. I think that the players like it, like you said, because it's like, okay, we're off and then it starts. And once it starts, then we're in it. You're not doing this weird 40 days of death, as I call it, between OTAs and training camp. So just looking at the schedule real quick as I check my calendar. OTAs today, OTAs tomorrow, OTAs Friday. Then you have mandatory minicamp that I believe starts on June 4th.
Yeah, and that's just 2 days, right? That's June 4th to the 6th.
Yes, 4th, 5th, and 6th, I think.
Yeah.
And then nothing. And then training camp in July or late July, early August. So it's a weird gap, but I think the NFL likes things spread out because they like for some NFL news to be talked about every single month. If you just zoom out and look at the calendar, February, of course, is Super Bowl. Then you've got the Combine is also in February. Then you have March is free agency. April is the draft. May is, well, the draft kind of bleeds into late May also. Then you've got rookie mini camp. Then in June, you've got OTAs and or mandatory camp. July is kind of nothing. And then training camp starts late July, August, and then you're back into like the regular flow. The league likes it to be spread out so that you can basically talk about the NFL all year round. If they delay it and do this sort of new plan, maybe that gets messed with a little bit. And I don't know if they like that or not.
Well, to the NFL, I say, buck up, deal with it. And then also it would be up to them to kind of figure out how to then spread out maybe some of the, like the draft. Maybe they can look at having that a little bit later in the off season, maybe, to just kind of spread it out. Cause the draft is like end of April. So if they just made it early May, I mean, that could work.
Like we said, it ultimately will do whatever, will adjust. I think that really what they're thinking too is they know they're going to 18 games soon.
Exactly. That's another, That's another thing too. This is the least they can do.
Right. And I think they're trying to think ahead, like all right, we got to play this extra game now. What can we get out of this? How do we sort of situate things to try and protect ourselves a little bit? Because they are going to 18 games. Like that is a thing. They've wanted to go to 18 games since the season was only 16 games long. This whole 17 game thing was always going to be like a stopgap. It was never the end game. They're going to go to 18 games. They're going to get rid of 1 week of the preseason. God knows they should throw an extra bye in there. I don't know if they will or not because they really don't give a crap. But that's eventually what's going to happen. So I think part of this revised offseason thing is all with that in mind.
Yeah, because they want to be able to do something like add another game that tells people we don't care about player safety, while on the other hand, doing something they can point to and be like, wait, we do. We're doing this for you. So that's just the way the NFL likes to balance their hypocrisy a little bit.
Right. Yeah, we really do care about player safety, except we're going to have something like 10 teams play 3 games in 10 days or some just absurd thing. We're going to have teams play on Wednesday, teams playing multiple short week games on Thursday. But don't worry, we really do care. Just trust us.
And I learned this like just last week because Jennifer Lee Chan mentioned it on 49ers Talk. There's 6 teams who don't even have a Thursday night game.
Yep.
Like you would think they would even that out between all teams, but no.
I really do
don't
think
even bother to do that.
Yep. I think in the past like 5 years, they have said, forget competitive balance. Forget the whole schedule is going to be TV ratings. That's all we care about. I mean, the 49ers have negative 21 or 22 rest days this year. That was the most in the league. Last year, they had negative 20 or 21 rest days. That was the most in the league. And when they got called out on it, they said, they still made the playoffs. It doesn't really matter. Like they don't care about that at all. It's all about ratings and TV.
It's like that one soundbite. I'm tired of this, Grandpa. That's too damn bad. That's the NFL to their players.
What the hell was that?
Just look that one up and please put it in
on the board,
the final cut for the audio, please.
Yeah. All right. I'll have to slide that one in there. Yeah, it's annoying as all hell. And I just hate the fact that when they got called out on it, they were like, well, you overcame it, so it couldn't have been a problem. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
Not how that works.
That's like, just like gaslighting.
You're right. Like if you had to go to work and I slashed all your tires and you still got there, I can't be like, Steph, what's the big deal? You were there.
Yeah, exactly. That's just like gaslighting, manipulative, argument to make it seem like it's all right. No, it's awful. It's awful. And yeah, maybe the 49ers are equipped to overcome it. And I'll just say this, like, just because they overcame it 1 year doesn't mean that the compounding effect of having to do it 2 years, mind you, for a team that just climbed this mountain, just to not get to the final goal. I mean, mentally, the thought of having to do it all over again with all of this in mind, I mean, yeah, that makes it tough.
And I think when you look at the Ravens, they have like the most rest, and it's like plus 16 days of rest. Like the disparity is so freaking huge, but they don't care. I mean, hell, the guy from the scheduling thing said, "Oh well, we put the Jets on prime time because they owed us because of last year. Last year we thought we were going to get Aaron Rodgers in prime time, so he put him on a bunch in prime time, and Rodgers got hurt, so people didn't get that. So now they're doing it again this year. It's like what? That's not how any of this works, but to them it is. And like we need to acknowledge it and just get over it because that's what it's going to be from now on.
Ratings. Yep.
They know what they're doing, though. I'll say that. God knows the NFL is making money hand over fist.
As long as the cap continues to go up, I mean, that's fine because at the end of the day, it does help the 49ers quite a bit.
Valerie in the chat, Ravens are plus 16 rest days while the Niners are at negative 21 rest days. That's Valerie who was giving me the Christian McCaffrey info. Thank you, Valerie, coming through for me again. Appreciate it. That's the kind of listenership we have here on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Thanks, everybody, again. Please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click the bell so you get notified every single time we go live, which is every single day. Make sure you like and subscribe to the 49 Carats YouTube channel as well. What do you got cooking over there, Steph?
Oh, man. I mean, tomorrow I'm going to be going live again with Desi, going to be talking about OTAs. And because the media will be there, we'll be replenished with some more content to overreact to. And
we get to hear from Brian Schneider tomorrow, who is the Niners special teams coach, which normally I wouldn't care about at all. But I'm fascinated by this kickoff rule and how teams are preparing for it and like what they're going to do. So I kind of want to see what he has to say. I hope they ask him like who's going to be returning kicks. It's the most excited I've ever been for a special teams coordinator interview in my life.
Which, you know what that means? The interview is going to be a complete dud and we're going to get nothing. No new information.
Why do you have to deflate my balloon like that, Steph?
I am preparing you because I've done the same thing. I was like so excited for like the Brandon Staley presser, and it was just so like it was a big nothing burger, and I was just like, why was I looking forward to this? So thinking the same for Brian Schneider. At least I wouldn't be surprised. I am looking forward to seeing like what he does have to say. Although again, he's going to keep it close to the vest just because every team is going to figure out or trying to figure out how to go about this, and they're not going to, just willy-nilly mention what they're doing to maybe benefit another team and their strategy with it. So I think they're going to keep it kind of under wraps until training camp. We'll kind of get to see what they're thinking.
We'll also hear from select players tomorrow as well, trying to figure out who's left because they let Brock talk. They let Bosa talk. If McCaffrey's not there, if he's there, maybe Debo. That'd be interesting to hear from Debo. We haven't heard from Kittle yet. I mean, he's never met a microphone he didn't like. He cut his hair. Did you see that?
Was that true though? Because the reason that people thought he cut his hair was because he was wearing a hat and you could just see like the shaved hair underneath. But what Kittle likes to do, and I've seen him do this before, is he puts his hair like into the hat, so then you can't see it like flowing out.
I just like the fact that we got to see your hair flowing in that little demonstration that you just did. Your hair is a sensation. It's taking over. You need to make social media accounts for your hair, Steph. We need it.
Rob, you know what I was thinking actually during that 40 days of death or, a slow season between mandatory minicamp and training camp. I think I might put out like a hair tutorial or something on my YouTube just to diversify the content a little bit.
Oh my God, I'm here for it. We need it. Now you have to do it. You've put it out into the universe. You can't just throw that out there and then take it away from us.
I'll do it. What else am I gonna do during that time? I might do some food content. Who knows? I'll fill that time up with something interesting.
I don't know. Maybe you'll fly out to San Francisco and make a scheduling video. Who knows what you might be up to in those 40 days? Apparently, that's the thing that you do.
And that's why you hit the notification bell so you always know what goes on in our lives.
See that? Professional host right there. That's it, Chaz. All right, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Thanks to Jay for letting me hop in. Hopefully he'll be back next week. We'll talk to you soon.
Peace.